Shalom, family. This is part 2, and we're talking about the truth about Moses, Aaron, the Levites, and the Levitical priesthood. And I'm going to read where I left off because it cut off before we finished the last verse. But I want to talk about this verse also. And I'm reading from the book of remembrance of Enoch in Bedal 10, verse 11 through 12. It says, "And in the end, the truth of that declaration and the effects of it will prevail to remain among all those who are in the presence of our father Enochseed." And I mentioned that Enochseed is what Adam and Eve called the father. And Enochseed means I am loving kindness. But the wicked will establish a different nature for their God. Did you hear that? It says the wicked will establish a different nature for their God and a different meaning for creation. Now, family, this is where we got the information that the Father was angry, that the Father hates, that the Father is vengeful, that the Father kills, that the Father curses. This is what they did inside of the Bible. This is what the wicked did. That's why it says, but the wicked will establish a different nature for their God. And this is why I'm always saying you have to learn the character of the true Father, because Adam and Eve knew him as loving kindness, and the Father says he changes not. So how do we get from a Father of loving kindness to one that kills, one that's angry, one that hates, one is vengeful? A lot of things, family, took place with the scriptures. And this is why today we have a lot of people that question God and want to know, well, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Because there's a lot of things that they don't understand. But we're going to get into a lot of information here. And it says, and it will stand among the wicked for a long time in the midst of their guilt until wickedness is done away. And there will be multitudes that will cling tenaciously to the view evil has of the Lord and creation. And so people today are clinging to that view of our Father, clinging to a view of him being angry, that he hates, that he's vengeful, that he's jealous. These are not the character of the true Father. These are the characters of Satan. And that's why the Bible said that Satan deceived the whole world. And he deceived the whole world, but first by changing the character of our Father. It says, and suffering and contention and alienation will rise up from the earth like the smoke of burning because of it. Now, let's go to the book of remembrance of Melchizedek in the section called Little Book, chapter 3. We're going to read from verse number 79. It says, and her voice of truth will fill the air, consuming all the moments of darkness. And that's what's happening now with these books. As we read these books, the voice of truth is now consuming all the moments of darkness. And the sweet sounds of life and the praise of elder will resound in creation once again. And the arm of my loving presence will be revealed. And the righteous multitudes of the earth will appear to be a new nation before the face of our father Enochseed. Now let's go to the seal portion. And in the seal portion, we're going to go and take a look at chapter 37, verse number 81. It says, and John answered them, saying, even in all these things that ye have done, ye have not kept the commandments of God in any. For the Lord hath not commanded these things of you, but they have been given unto you as commandments of men. And also you have been given the lower law of Moses, which is not the law of the Father, but the law that should point you towards the Father, that you might have his Spirit to be with you. So John just said a mouthful. But John let us be able to see that there were things that were changed. And he says that we were given the law of Moses, which is not the law of the Father. Because as soon as Moses came out with the law, you know what happened? The wicked changed that law. And that's why we have these 613 laws in the Old Testament. And when you think about these laws, a lot of them, like, this can't be the Father, because it wasn't the Father that gave those laws. And that's why Christ had to come, and he did the Sermon on the Mount. And during Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, in the Sermon on the Mount, he gave the law. But the thing is, the wicked changed that also. And the only way you can see that is if you have the fullness of the gospel. Because the gospel is not the birth, the death, and the resurrection. That is not true. The gospel are the laws of love that Christ restored back to the world. Because these laws were also given to Adam and Eve when they left out of the Garden of Eden. Now, if you want the fullness of the gospel, the correct version of Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, only thing you need to do is message me inside of my inbox and send me your email address, and I will send that information. And when you get it, compare with the Bible, and you're going to be shocked with what you see. But everything that you're going to see is going to make sense. And those laws, you're going to realize, man, these laws aren't complicated. These laws are all about how we treat each other, not being angry with each other, not gossiping on each other. How you treat your brother and sister are what these laws boil down to. But today, people are trying to keep the law of Moses, and they have no idea how corrupt and how changed those things were. Now, let's go to the sealed portion, chapter 48, verse 65 and 66. And the young man said unto Jesus, which commandments of the Father shall I keep? And Jesus perceived his thoughts and knew the commandments that the young man had kept according to the law of Moses. And Jesus says, thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, honor thy father and thy mother. What's he rattling off? Christ is rattling off the 10 commandments. But listen what he continues to say. For all these are the law that have been given unto you by the scribes and the Pharisees. Isn't that something else? Now let's go to the sealed portion, chapter 48, verse 67. But the commandments of the Father have fulfilled all these things, and is encompassed into a commandment that thou keepest not, but which thou must keep in order to inherit the kingdom of the Father, even that thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Sealed portion, chapter 49, verse number 7. And it says, in the time of Jesus, the law of Moses had been corrupted and changed considerably, even that the original purpose and meaning of the sacrifice of animals, as well as the manner in which they were sacrificed, had been changed, so that the people did not understand that which they did in offering up sacrifices. But the people did these things according to their traditions, that they might fulfill the requirements of salvation as they had been taught to believe by their leaders. Let's jump down to verse number 10. And Jesus also knew these things. And when he had come into Jerusalem, according to the traditions of the Passover, he found in the temple those who sold oxen and sheep and doves, and also the money changers who had been commissioned by the church to accept the money of the people, no matter in what form it was received. And everything was done, family, for profit. And that's what verse 11 says. And everything that was done by the church was done for a profit, just like today. We're going to stop here and pick it up in the next video. Shalom, family.